Good afternoon, YouTube. Welcome back for another update of the 2019 complete Blu-ray collection, one shelf at a time. So we're going to crack on straight away. This is shelf number 5. Let's get straight to it. Okay, so starting this shelf, we're still in the Bs. We are going to be soon moving into the Cs. We've got an Arrow release. This is a 70s like haunted house horror film starring Oliver Reed called Burnt Offerings. Next up, we've got the Tim Burton collection. So as you can see, the artwork doesn't change on the inside of this box set, but there's 8 films in this collection. So you've got the original, the original Tim Burton Batman film, and then the sequel Batman Returns. Then of course you've got the classic, amazing Beetlejuice. We've got Mars Attacks. There's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Sweeney Todd, The Demon Barber of Fleet Street. Then there's the early Burton film Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and of course Corpse Bride. Next up, we've got a film called The Business. This is basically a British gangster film starring Danny Dyer, probably one of his better films. Next up, we've got a film called Buy Bust. This is a Filipino action film, very similar in vein of films like The Raid. This is a good action sort of martial arts thriller. Next up, we've got another horror film from the director Eli Roth. This is Cabin Fever. And then following that, we've got another horror / parody film. This is The Cabin in the Woods. Here we've got a Chinese film called Call of Heroes. As you can see on the front, it says from the action director of the Ip Man films. That's Sammo Hung, if you're not familiar with him. Didn't direct the film, it was directed by Benny Chan, but it's got Wu Jing in it. So if you like martial arts films, this is definitely one to watch. Next up, we've got an Irish film called Calvary with Brendan Gleeson. This, even though it describes it as a black comedy on the front, it's quite a good sort of thriller in its own, I think. Good watch, this one. Next up, we've got another Arrow release. This one is Kaltiki, the Immortal Monster. This is a very Lovecraftian-based horror. And another Arrow release. This is the recent, I say recent, it's nearly a year old now, but the special edition version of Candyman. So as this is one of the collector's editions, you get a poster with it, and of course the standard Arrow booklets, and obviously the film itself. I just changed to the original cover art. Great release, this one. More horror films coming up here. This is from Shameless. This is Cannibal Ferox. And another Shameless release. This is the infamous classic Cannibal Holocaust. As you can see, it's got the line on the front there, the most controversial film ever made. Is it the most controversial film ever made? I'm not so sure. Judging by today's standards, it's pretty easy to see through the special effects, although very notorious at the time. Changing the tone somewhat, we've got the Captain America box set. So as you can see, this box set's got all 3 films, probably some of the best MCU films in this collection. You've got The First Avenger, The Winter Soldier, and Civil War. And then next up we've got Captain Phillips, the Paul Greengrass film with Tom Hanks, of course. This one's actually a remake of a Danish film called A Hijacking. Although I did find this version, it was very well made. I thought it was pretty good. Here we've got the Arrow special edition of Carrie. So I decided to keep the new artwork in the sleeve in this one, but yeah, this is maybe not Brian De Palma's most famous film, but certainly one that got him onto the map. Next up, we've got one of my favourite films of all time and one of the best films ever made. It's the classic Casablanca. So I think this is a great release in the HMV Premium Collection range. If you haven't got this, you should definitely pick it up. It's one of the best films from like the golden period of Hollywood movie making back in 1942. It's an absolute classic for a reason, and it's probably maybe my second favourite film of all time. Next up, we've got Casino. This is Martin Scorsese in his element. So apologies about the glare on this one. It's difficult to get it from an angle that doesn't reflect all the light coming into the room. Anyway, here we've got Casino Tycoon. This is a great release in the 88 Asia collection range from director Wong Jing and starring the excellent Andy Lau. Next up, we've got Tom Hanks in one of his most famous roles. This is Castaway. And here we've got a brilliant release from Studio Ghibli. This is Castle in the Sky. Probably my favourite Hayao Miyazaki film. And following that up, we've got The Castle of Cagliostro, another Miyazaki film. This one isn't in the Studio Ghibli range because it was made before they formed the studio. Okay, next up we've got another Arrow special edition. This one is Dario Argento's classic, The Cat o' Nine Tails. So these are brilliant collector's editions. There's really a lot of effort gone into these releases. So you get the standard poster and booklet, and of course the remastered film. I did like the alternative artwork, so I decided to keep it. Okay, so this next film is a British film. It's called Catch Me Daddy. So this is quite a strange film. It's set in Yorkshire. I thought I'd show you the different artwork, the slipcovers there on the left. Yeah, what can I say? It's a drama at heart, but yeah, it's quite bizarre. Moving on to another bizarre film. This is a film from Thailand. I'm going to try and pronounce the director's name. It is by Apachipong Woraistakul. It's called Cemetery of Splendor. This is pretty much as art house as you can get. So it's very ambiguous. You're left to draw your own conclusions and meanings from it. However, it's very beautifully filmed. Next up, we've got a film called Changeling. This is from director Clint Eastwood. As you can see, it stars Angelina Jolie in the main role. Bizarrely, this is the Canadian version. I think I purchased this one from Music Magpie, and this is what I got sent, but as it only cost like £1, I wasn't going to complain. It's region free anyway, so it's all good. Next up, we've got a film called The Changeling. So I absolutely love this film. This is a great release from Second Sight. So much like the Arrow box sets, you get a poster with this one and the booklet, and of course the remastered film. This is like the sort of seminal horror, like haunted house horror film. It's so well made. I could watch it over and over again. It's a great, if you like that type of genre film. Next up is a TV series. So this one is called Channel Zero. As you can see, it's season 1, Candle Cove. It's only about 6 episodes long. It's quite like a sort of horror mystery, quite freaky in places. Pretty well made though. Quite on a low budget though. So there's not famous actors and that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's an original idea. I'll give it that. Next up, we've got an Indicator release. This, of course, is Charlie Varick, a film that could only probably be made in the 70s. It's a great sort of heist film. And then, well, it starts with a heist and then basically they're on the run after that. But it's worth checking out. It's really good. Next up, we've got another Chinese film. This is called Chasing the Dragon. As you can see, it's got Andy Lau and the amazing Donnie Yen. It's not a standard martial arts Donnie Yen film. It's much more of a gangster film. There are quite a lot of action sequences in it, though. It's pretty good, this one. Not quite what I was expecting when I bought it, but it surprised me. It was decent. Next up, we've got another British film. This is a drama called Chicken. This one is a release from the distributor label Network, who quite frequently have sales on Amazon where you can buy their films for like £2 or £3. So they're worth checking out because they've got some classics in their range. Next up, we've got the great Children of Men. This one has had a upgraded re-release from Arrow Academy recently, and I may potentially upgrade to that when I can find it at a relatively cheap price, but this one will do for the time being. Great film though. Next up, we've got another film from Thailand. This is nothing like the previous one that I showed though. This is another sort of area of filmmaking that Thailand are famous for, of course, their martial arts films. This one's called Chocolate. Yeah, this one's worth seeking out if you do like your action films. Next up, we've got a classic John Carpenter film, because all of John Carpenter's films that were made in the 80s are classics, in my opinion. Yeah, this is, of course, of Christine. It's not his best work, but it's up there, definitely. It's a great film. Here we've got a Disney release. This is the recent film Christopher Robin. I did enjoy this one. Next up, we've got a film called Chronicle. This, of course, is it blends these sort of genres of found footage and superhero movies into one. This was quite pleasantly surprising, though. It turned out to be a good film. And then next up, we've got the Chronicles of Narnia series that Disney released in the 2000s. So from the left to the first one, of course, The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, followed up by Prince Caspian and then The Voyage of the Dawn Treader. I did enjoy these. The first one is most certainly the best. Prince Caspian's a bit weak in my opinion, and then I did enjoy Voyage of the Dawn Treader, mainly because it's a good story. Yeah, shame they didn't continue with this series. I guess they just weren't making enough money for them. But you can normally pick them up quite cheap, so it's worth, if you like the sort of fantasy genre, then it's quite good. Next up, we've got another Shameless release. This one is called The Church. It's an Italian horror film. And then last but not least for this shelf, we've got the original Disney classic of Cinderella. Okay, so that wraps things up for this video. So thank you very much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day, and please join me again when we'll be looking at shelf number 6.